What's up everybody, Jackfar here with a first edition of weekly transfer grading. This show will be put out every week with my personal grades from some of the more notable transfers throughout European football. This week I'll also be looking at a couple of transfers that have been agreed before this week, dating back to potentially even before the January transfer window. Fingers crossed, due to my poor but ever improving editing skills, there'll be a lovely infographic here of the players that I am discussing to make sure that we are on the same page. A lot of the players on this list would not be considered mainstream football talent, I guess you would call it. Obviously in that breath, when you hear somebody that maybe you've not heard of before, do still listen out because this could be a star for the future. Naturally, there will be the odd name, of course, that you do recognise and that you do know, and that me giving you any information on them is pointless because you already know that information. The way the grading system will work, I'll be looking at a number of areas in which I would consider a transfer to be good or not good. So, value is number one. If your club or a club has overpaid for a player, that negatively affects your grade. If your club has underpaid for a player who is worth more than you pay for them, then that will positively affect your grade. You have to look at the resale factor of players as well. So you want to make sure that every single time that you sign a player, there's a potential that you may sell the player on for an equivalent amount or even more going forward. Another area I'll be looking at is how that player will fit into the system in which a team plays. Just because you're a good manager like Pep Guardiola, it doesn't mean that a player of Zlatan Ibrahimovic's quality will work in a Pep Guardiola team. You catch my drift. So, without any further ado, let's get started. So, number one is a player called Leon Balogun. He is a Nigerian international, so an international level player. He's been playing his trade at FC Mainz in the Bundesliga, who finished 14th last year, and he's moving on a free transfer to Brighton in the Premier League. He stands at 6'3" and is a strong, dominant force at the back. In terms of a grading, I'm personally probably going to give it somewhere in the realms of like a C+. This is purely because I think Brighton should be a little bit more ambitious if they're trying to remain in the Premier League for next year. However, the reason why it gets any positive grades at all, you're getting a 29-year-old for probably his best years, and also on top of that, it's a free transfer. You can't shout at a free transfer for an international player. Next up is the transfer of Andres Iniesta, one of the greatest players to ever do it. His transfer is a free transfer to Vissel Kobe, which I believe is in Japan. I'm not grading this, it doesn't deserve a grade from me. I feel as though when players do this, when they move on to the MLS, when they move on to Asia, when they move to Russia for loads of money, it really is like them signing off on their careers. To me, Iniesta has already retired from football. I won't be grading this one, but a quick nod to the maestro. Next up is Ben Wilmot, an 18-year-old centre-back standing at 6'2" from Stevenage. Wilmot is moving from Stevenage to Watford for an undisclosed fee, but it's believed to be around £1.5 million. He's only ever played 15 times for Stevenage, but I liken this to kind of the trajectory that Eric Bailly took. Eric Bailly did not play many games for Villarreal and then immediately got signed by Manchester United. This says to me that there's a certain talent level here that the team buying wants to avoid his exposure to all the other teams to prevent them being interested. If you read the papers and you read the tabloids, you will notice that teams like Tottenham Hotspur, Liverpool were sniffing around this player, and for 1.5 million, Watford have gotten themselves, by the looks of things, a very, very high potential player. At 6'2", he has fantastic measurables. Naturally, I haven't seen him at all on any sort of video clips. I don't really like to use YouTube highlight videos because you only see the good, and evaluating a player, you need the good and also the bad. My grade for this will be an A-. I mean, it's very difficult to give Watford anything less here because you're looking at a player who's 18, he costs you next to nothing in the current market, he's English, so he fills a homegrown squad position in your team. Also, the inflated price of English players would mean that if he amounts to anything going forward in football, you will be able to sell him on for very, very reasonable money. I think Liverpool and I think Tottenham have really missed out here, but it was good from Watford to act so quickly, so A- from me. Next up, and a slightly more notable transfer from Leipzig, is Naby Keita to Liverpool. The initial fee here was £48 million that Liverpool are paying to Leipzig, but based on the ability of the club and how they perform the years that he is there, that could well go up to £66 million, which is obviously quite a lot of money. Technically unbelievably gifted, a very, very Jurgen Klopp style midfielder. He's very shifty, he's got an ability to beat a man from midfield, which is usually quite a rare occurrence these days from a midfielder. Based on the current market, a 23-year-old for that kind of money, it does sound about right based on the current market. I would say you're getting a standout player in, hopefully going forward, the future prime of his years at this kind of cost. My grade is probably going to be a B. It's hard to argue that this is not good business from Liverpool in terms of tying him down when they did, so that the market couldn't inflate even more so than it already has. He really, really, really fits Jurgen Klopp's playing style beautifully. The one reason why I've given this a little bit of a lower grade than maybe some of you might have been expecting is because this kind of player always has a chance to come into the league and not do so well. So I have my reservations, but everything points to this being a success. Next up, from Mainz to Schalke, is Suat Serdar for €11 million. At 21 years old and also being signed as somewhat, we're still in May, as somewhat of a priority from the team that finished second in the Bundesliga, that screams a lot to me that Schalke really, really like this player. Serdar has represented Germany at every single age apart from the first national team. I would imagine after the end of next season he will probably gain his first cap. Very talented player, very physically dominant in the centre of midfield. You would imagine maybe due to the loss of Leon Goretzka as he moves to Bayern Munich, this may be somewhat of a replacement here. I don't think Schalke will be going to try and win the Bundesliga next year, but I think they will try and establish their place in the top four to make consistent Champions League football. This is very proactive business from Schalke. They're taking a developmental talent and hoping that they can produce him into an elite talent to either sell him for a profit in the future or establish a team going forward. Schalke's transfer business has been questionable, I think, to say the least, and that's not just my opinion, but also the opinion of many others. I think you're looking at a team that have let the likes of Sead Kolasinac go, Choupo-Moting, Goretzka, probably Max Meyer soon in the future. You've let these guys go for way less than their actual transfer valuation. My grade for this one will be an A. It has to be an A. It's very, very difficult to argue with this. At €11 million, I can see Serdar progressing to be one of the best Bundesliga central midfielders going forward. Still at a young age. He'll probably play for Bayern in about 3 or 4 years' time, but obviously that still remains to be seen. It's very difficult not to give this a high grade from Schalke. Next up is Keenan Bennett from Tottenham Hotspur to Borussia Mönchengladbach. I'm sure if you're a Tottenham fan, you're thinking, who the hell is Keenan Bennett? I didn't know we had a player called Keenan Bennett. He's a younger player. He's obviously playing in your under-21s, under-23s at the moment. And what he's doing is he's following the likes of Jadon Sancho, Ademola Lookman, Reece Oxford, and so many other young English players to try and ply their trade in the Bundesliga to develop. And whereas Germany will give them the chance, English teams will not give them the chance. Bennett is a little bit of a rarity. He's a left-footed player who's also playing on the left flank as a winger. He can also play fullback, but more as a winger. Usually these days we see a left-footed player play on the right and kind of cut in, having that inside role, same from vice versa as well. But we really have kind of a traditional player here from a standpoint of he's a flank player and his strong foot is on the side of the flank that he plays on. As a pro player comparison, I kind of look at a young Gareth Bale stroke Kyle Walker, and I know there's quite a lot of credit to that based on how good that both of those players are right now. As you can tell, I'm seeing a lot of athleticism based on the two players that I'm comparing him with. He's unbelievably strong, unbelievably quick, a really, really, really good athlete. All it will depend on is whether he can piece together the technical sides to his game and the decision-making side of his game to make himself a more complete player. At €2.25 million, Borussia Mönchengladbach have got another really, really decent player. And if any German team wants to benefit from the wealth of English talent that we have coming through right now, they're more than welcome to it. To temper expectations a little bit with this guy, I'm not putting him up there with the likes of Phil Foden, Jadon Sancho or Angel Gomez, but we do still need to consider this a success story for English football plying their trade in a top 5 league. It's fantastic. In terms of a grade, I'm probably going to give this a B. Like I've said, I'm not comparing him to the likes of Foden, Sancho or Gomez, so you've got to look at him as a developmental player who could do a Gareth Bale and shock us all, but who could also just fade into the distance like so many others have. The reason why it's still going to be a B though is for 2.25 million euros, I don't think Borussia Mönchengladbach will have too many problems with this flopping. Next up is the diminutive attacking creative midfielder Ante Coric from Dinamo Zagreb to AS Roma for 8 million euros. Coric is 21 years old, he is a Croatian international player and a creative attacking midfielder. Many of you may not know this, my personal hero in the football business world is Director of Football at Roma at the moment, Monchi. He's also had previous success at other clubs. One of his best abilities is to be able to sign players for a very, very small fee, and you kind of wonder how have you quite managed that, then selling them on for a lot of money in the future. I see this happening exactly the same way again. Roma will no doubt make a huge, huge profit from this player in the future. At 21, you can see this player maybe being at Roma up until he's 23, 24, where no doubt he will get a move to the Premier League for upwards of £50 million at the time. Roma are usually superb in the transfer market. You look at their dealings of late, and you look at some of the players that they've managed to sign for the prices they've managed to sign them. This is all just incredible, and with Monchi at the helm directing it all, it's all very, very, very impressive. I'm sure Monchi will strike again on this one, and that it's going to be another great, great, great prospect. My grade for this one probably has to be an A. For 8 million euros to sign a Croatian international at the age of 21 in the attacking midfielder position is quite something. You would imagine Coric will probably be playing with the end of Edin Dzeko's career, but Patrick Schick going forward, Cengiz Under to the side of him, maybe El Shaarawy to the other side of him, and then with the supporting cast behind of Raja Nainggolan and Kevin Strootman, he's got a good foundation to succeed there. I would say that as Coric develops into one of the best creative midfielders in the world and is then sold for a hideous profit going forward, that Monchi will just tick yes next to another success story in his transfer dealings. Next up is Marius Wolf, who has just signed for Borussia Dortmund. Marius Wolf has just signed from Eintracht Frankfurt, who have obviously just beaten Germany in the DFB Pokal Cup final, which is fantastic. I watched the game. After the terrible, terrible showing from the FA Cup final, I needed some good football to relax me again, and luckily the German Cup final did that for me. Marius Wolf plays as a winger, but he is 6'2", so I really liken him a lot here to Mario Mandzukic, and also if you do watch him play, and I have watched him play a little bit in the Bundesliga this year, he does kind of have this real kind of domineering presence about him. If you do play a cross-field pass with the ball to him in the air, it is something that he'll be able to control against a smaller fullback. At 5 million euros, you've got to look at a deal that represents decent value for money here as well. I'm probably giving this grade-wise a B-. The reason I say that is I'm looking at undoubtedly a talented player, but a player who's going to have to battle for real estate with the likes of Jadon Sancho, Marco Reus and Christian Pulisic. I don't know if he'll be getting a lot of game time, and at his age he needs to be playing regularly, so a B- from me. Last up, and actually delaying me producing this video because I knew that I was just about to put this video out, but then I saw the news come through. Fabinho has joined Liverpool from AS Monaco. Yes, as I've said, this did kind of delay me putting this video out because I knew it had to be in this episode, and you know, this episode should probably be called the Liverpool episode due to what Keita and Fabinho have done for Liverpool. At £39 million, you have what I would consider arguably the most safe to succeed transfer of all time, arguably. £39 million, versatile as hell, he can play in a number of positions. This signing really is a cannot fail kind of transfer for me. With the negativity of the Champions League final, with Emre Can probably moving to Juventus for a free transfer, and I have such a man crush on Emre Can, I think letting him go was a real mistake. With Oxlade-Chamberlain's injury, with James Milner getting older, and all these kind of like negatives after this fantastic season, to have signed Naby Keita obviously coming in, we knew that beforehand, but also signing Fabinho, I would argue that if James Milner never plays for Liverpool again due to getting older or whatever, then you've replaced Emre Can and James Milner with Fabinho and Naby Keita. That's an upgrade. I discussed earlier in the video about the types of areas that I look at when I'm kind of grading these transfers: the value for money, the does it fit a scheme, does it fit a system, a style of play, and this one does all of those. So yeah, funnily enough for me, it's an A+. I cannot give this anything else apart from an A+. One thing I would argue, unless this is a release clause being met, that's quite low, and I would imagine that Monaco may have been able to ask for more money here. But kudos to Liverpool. They managed to get their man for 39 million. Any disagreements that you have, please put down a comment below. I'd love to talk to you about them and prove to you why you're wrong. I will try and put these videos out once a week. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, and obviously any comments, please let me know. Thank you for watching. Please check our other videos. Too sweet.